movie I cannot be remotely objective about.
Okay. All right, good enough.
Who's gonna start?
Who's
I don't know,
gonna?
man.
I mean, you can't. Well, sure, that's a good.
Yes, I can.
I mean, this movie was designed to be a fucking cult movie, basically. So it's like,
I don't know. I think of the time. I think about the
I
time it came
love
out,
it
and
unconditionally, despite its many flaws.
yeah, when it came out, it was kind of making a lampoon of what the rock business was doing back then,
Hmm.
trying to corporatize a bit, and there were like a lot of people that impresarios running it. There's a lot of like parody about that going on, about like how things were kind of like getting all what's Bill Grahamish and like Phil Spectorish. In fact, the original name of Swan's character was Spectre, and they changed
Right.
it. But so there's kind of a parody of that, but it's also the Faust story, obviously. And I think that this film is just a great example of like an outlier of New Hollywood. It's like the first 20 minutes shows you how awful everything is. It's like the guy wants to
Yeah,
sell his music.
this utterly wretched fucking Juicy Fruits band.
Who show up 3 times in this film.
Right. I mean,
We're actually a comedy trio who sang.
right.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, yeah.
the thing
Yeah.
about like there, I really, 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 really like music from this period.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, you couldn't swing a dead cat in 1973, 74 without hearing something written by Paul Williams on the radio.
True.
And glam rock was still very much a thing. And I mean, I was living in LA when the poster started to go up, and as an 8-year-old, you see the poster, you get a completely twisted idea of what this movie is going to be about. But this is one of those ones I caught on Z Channel,
All right.
and I remember being so alarmed by the scene behind me
Oh
where
yeah.
the gothic glam rock band proceeds to cut. To my 8-year-old eyes, I thought they were dismembering people with guitars.
Wow. Okay. So
And
even
I
as a
didn't
kid,
like it. You watch it now, it's like it's obviously like all
okay, this is how we're different. I saw this in the theater back in '74, and as a kid, I was 12 years old, and even I knew when they were stabbing a guy's chest with that guitar and taking it out there. He was like, it was all part of the act. He's like,
right.
ah, and they're taking his fake chest off the guy. It's like I didn't
Sure.
buy it for a second.
As a
You know,
little
back
kid,
then when I
though,
was a
like
kid.
as a little kid, I was completely alarmed.
Okay.
But I mean, I've watched this movie a bazillion times, and I mean, I like the songs, and I think Garrett Graham steals
Oh my God, he
scene
does. He's the
in.
best.
Every scene he is in, he steals. He's
Uh-huh.
hilarious.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, yes, it's cheesy, and I mean, yeah, I was actually kind of surprised there wasn't more split screen, but there are some rather bravura camera choices. I think the art direction is fantastic.
Yeah, for what it's worth, it wasn't a huge budget film.
It's of its time, and I don't know. I'd be interested to hear Jared shit all over this in a minute, because I can totally see how this
he's
movie
primed.
would not connect for anybody under the age of 59.
Oh, now, yeah, I can see
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I don't know what the modern equivalent to this would be.
Yeah,
but I could see how, yeah, this is going to be lost on anybody that wasn't there when it happened.
well, here's a question for you. The filmmaker Brian De Palma and the guys who wrote it and who made this film, do you think they really apprehended what was really going on in showbiz at that time, or is this their fantasy version of it? You know, it's obviously, except for the Faust thing, I'm thinking that the whole thing about like impresarios putting out big things like Winterland and like Fillmore East
Sure.
and West was still a big thing back then, and that kind of affects the
everybody
feeling of the
knows that
film.
anybody signed to a major label in the 70s got a terrible fucking deal, with the exception of Led Zeppelin, because Atlantic Records was so terrified of their manager, they would basically do whatever he said.
Right, that's true.
But honestly, like like in 1973, once the major labels figured out, my dad is in a whole book about this period of time.
Oh yeah,
Once the major labels figured out that there was big money in rock music, like they held all the cards, and the kids in the bands were so desperate to get signed to a major that they were signing all these, like, I mean, they're getting like a penny
right.
on an album sale. And so this whole thing behind me with, Swan basically bending this guy over, like that's very in line with
It's
how
only a
things
slight
work.
exaggeration of reality.
Only, yeah, I mean, the devil getting involved, like, sure. So it's a caricature of what I think was really going on, but the movie to me is so much bigger than just this. But it's a lot of mugging. It's a fucking fuck ton of mugging. There's a lot of weird fisheye close-ups. Like
Yeah.
basically every fucking shot of
Oh
this
yeah.
helmet has got that maximum fisheye effect. So
Well,
he looks
shit. You know, they got
as
the look.
bird-like as humanly possible.
They nailed the look for this guy with the leather suit and the helmet and the bird thing. The birds are all over this film. You notice that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of the major themes of this film is birds. You see them everywhere in this film. It's weird. It's like a kind of early thematic idea about throwing a thematic idea across visually. Yeah. It's good stuff. And
what does it mean?
I have no idea what it
What
means.
it
You know what?
means?
That's why I'm perplexed. I think it's just a basic theme. I don't know what it means.
I don't think this movie is particularly deep, in all honesty. I think, as I understand it, reading the Wikipedia notes, De Palma wanted to make this movie in the late 60s.
Oh, yeah.
And it took him a little while for him to actually pull. I mean, and, this is the guy that did, like a year later, he's working on Carrie and Obsession, which is a pretty blatant Hitchcock ripoff. It's still pretty watchable. I mean, you could see the talent, like the filmmaking talent is there. It's just is in service of this sort of ludicrous, completely over the top story cranked up to 11. I mean, in its defense, it's nice and short. And again, I like the songs. I don't think, what's her name doing the female lead, Jessica Harper. I don't think she's particularly great, especially in the lip syncing stuff.
I know, as a kid, I kind of had a crush on her, but
she's pretty, but I don't think I don't think her performance is particularly great. But I thought Paul Williams, like
watching it now, and watching her do her little number that gets her the job, and she's singing along, and it's like you really regular rehearsal, right? She's like, here you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, and she's singing. Then at the point she's in the runway, she starts looking at the camera, breaking down the fourth wall.
Yeah,
that was really odd. It struck me for the first time. It's like, what are we doing here? Yeah, why is she looking at the camera during this part? It's like I think it really kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool, in terms of like, the guys, De Palma's making this film is like, we're actually going to kind of try to make a direct connection between the audience and Jessica Harper here. Boom, boom, boom. Right. And he does it by actually having her stare the camera down. It's like really unusual, you know? Yeah. So that's kind of...
But by the time we get to the end, when he's in that set, the wherever they're doing the musical numbers, and the camera's sort of zooming around, like, I mean, this is a guy that was swinging for the fences on some of the filmmaking. And, obviously, we talked about Carrie because I picked it a year or two ago. And I mean, that movie's like, for me, one of the greatest things ever made. But it's fun to sort of watch because that movie, we talked about how much we sort of liked the scene when the two of them are dancing at the prom and the camera, they're going one way and the camera's going the other way.
Yeah.
There are some really tremendously great filmmaking in that movie that this movie was clearly, he's still futzing around.
Yeah, like he's warming up in this thing.
He does Sisters, which we haven't talked about. I mean, that movie's completely batshit.
I saw it recently. That film's bonkers, man.
Bonkers. But I mean, I got the Criterion too. But I mean, like, that's bonkers. This is bonkers. Obsession is, again, a blatant Hitchcock ripoff. But you're watching him kind of work through he's like trying to find his own voice. And
Dress to Kill is like one of my favorites.
I love Dress to Kill. I like a huge chunk of
but it's so Hitchcocky.
Body Double, but again, a lot of Hitchcock there. I mean, he's one of my favorite filmmakers.
He's the second coming of Hitchcock, right? I mean, he
right.
Like,
I mean, that's how he sold them back then.
Yeah.
Sometimes to a fault. I don't see a lot of Hitchcock in this. It's just what I'll say is though, Rocky Horror Picture Show, the movie
1 year later.
Was only a year after this, but the stage play had been playing at the Roxy and also in London since like a couple of years earlier. And I don't know which.
Now, mind you, this film was actually made in 1972. It got delayed for the release for 2 years, mostly because of Led Zeppelin.
Yes.
Why?
Because their
Swan
label is
Song.
called Swan Song, and they put that labeling all over the movie Swan Song. There's a bit where they're talking at the airport where like they're introducing beef. You see that ridiculous looking CG over and there's a CG over the podium that covers up Swan Song with Death Records.
Yeah.
And so,
so that
they're
was
having
a-
some legal problems with
Peter-
Led Zeppelin at this point.
What was his name? Peter Grant, their man. Like everybody was terrified of that too.
Yeah, that's the thing. They were scared of him, so they had to kind of work it out and change everything in the film so it would not be identified as Swan Song, which is not related in any way. It says that's that dude falling out of the sky going, ah. And this, the Swan Song here was this dead bird thing. But, either way, it's like they had to kind of like work around Led Zeppelin.
I don't think Rocky Horror ripped this off or vice versa, but it's interesting that they're kind of, in many ways, at least musically, very flippin' similar.
Oh, there's a through line. There's a definite through line. I would actually put this through line from starting with Brewster McCloud, which is not musical, but it has that kind of same feeling, kind of thrown together weirdness. This Altman, the 71 goes to this in 72 with 74, then it goes to Rocky Horror Picture Show, and you could actually trace it all the way out to Flash Gordon if you want. But yeah, so it's like
so
like
this
wonderful
cheesy, weird, and still feeling kind of like New Hollywood.
Oh, and exactly. There's also the thing is the New Hollywood thing. Exactly right. That's what the thing that's the feel it gives you, basically.
Yeah.
All right, this is enough of me and Scott praising this thing. Why don't you two go?
Yeah, now wait.
Which one of us? Although I have
for the
to
brick
laugh.
bats.
Wait, sorry. Had you seen this before, John?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will tell a little story.
Oh boy.
Because I know you love this movie, Chris, but we both know somebody who loves it more.
I know Frank Gravatt has
Frank.
the helmet.
Yes, we both went to high school with Frank. Your friend
an
Frank.
actual fucking helmet. He made his own
He
version
built
of
the helmet.
Oh wow.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
And then he went to work sculpting stuff for ILM.
Damn.
So that's Frank. But
this used to be when I was living with him in the 80s, this was his favorite movie.
I can see why.
It's still his favorite movie.
When I knew him, which was high school, that was his favorite movie, and he went so far as to rent, I think, a 16 millimeter copy and play it at the little theater at our high school.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I don't know that I was here for that yet. I think.
Maybe you weren't.
Who hasn't done that?
Right before
I think it was my junior year. Who hasn't done that? Well, he did that, and that was the first time I saw the film. So that must have been in my junior year, so
81,
79, probably 79. And this is the first time I've seen it since 1979.
Oh, dear.
And as we recently learned on this show, and as it says right behind Jared there, every movie is good.
Yes.
And I know some people love this movie.
Very much so, yeah.
But as soon as you said we were going to watch this movie, I was just like, and it is exactly as I remember it. I mean, I knew Rocky Horror was going to come up. It's inevitable that it's going to come up.
Sure.
Oh, I was this close to pairing this with that.
I would love to. I mean,
close.
That would have been. That'll probably make a great episode if we ever do Rocky Horror. There's just so much to talk about. My God, that'll be a long episode. But if we want to compare it to Rocky Horror, the difference is Rocky Horror has hugely appealing characters. And the absolute star power of Tim Curry as Dr. Frankenfurter, which is the center, the core of that thing. And it's fun. He has that charisma. This movie has William Finley.
Yeah, sure.
With this geek with this awful haircut. And then it has Paul Williams, who has always made my skin crawl forever. Since the 70s when he was on every variety show on TV.
He was on Love Boat and The Island and all of it.
Yeah, and who needs an extended love scene with Paul in a bathrobe half open making out with the lead female in the movie?
I don't disagree with anything you just said.
Rocky Horror Picture Show is fun. This is a bummer. It's a bummer from start to end. It's a satire. I get it's a satire of the music business, but it's just unpleasant. And I don't like the songs, and there's nothing funny happening during the songs. We just have to watch them being performed. The songs are terrible. The dialogue is terrible. It made me... It's icky. The movie is icky. Beef's okay. Beef's funny.
Yeah.
Beef
I
is
think it's
funny.
because Beef reminds you of Rocky from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, I guess so.
With
a sort of like a New York fuck you attitude.
You know what? You're telling on yourself in some ways.
How do you mean?
I mean, Rocky Horror Picture Show is its own thing. It is immersed in kitsch. It doesn't care about anything but its own self. It's kind of a solipsistic story about, what's that line from the last song?
Don't dream it, be it.
Yes, exactly. That's the whole movie.
Yep.
This was something making a statement about larger things like the corruption in the music business and like your soul and things like that. There's a lot of there's some heavy elements in this thing. And the thing is, especially the first 20 minutes where you see what happens to what's his name?
His head gets crushed in the machine.
Horrible.
Winslow.
Yeah, Winslow Leach.
Leach.
Even his name is unsympathetic.
He gets his fucking head fucked up and he goes in the river. I mean, as a kid, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like
it's a bummer.
There's a real horror in this film.
Yes.
And
it has a bitter aftertaste.
It is.
It kind of ends badly for everybody in it.
It's a film of a era.
Yeah.
So
there's no likable characters in it, and Rocky Horror is full of likable characters. So if that's telling on myself, it's like, so be it.
All right. Well, okay. That's
I don't totally disagree with you, John.
Okay.
Like I said, I know this movie is flawed in a bazillion different levels. I just
love it.
Because I started watching it and
this is a movie much like Rocky Horror where it's a time and a place, and if you saw it at the right age, probably in the right frame of mind, you probably love it.
Maybe I don't want to go too far into Rocky Horror, but there's actually, in terms of likable characters, the only one really for me was Janet, and she was corrupted at the end. It's the end of she's kind of like.
I think Frankenfurter is immensely likable.
Okay, we're just different that way, John. 100%. We'll talk about it time offline. Okay.
All right. Well, Jared, what do you think about Phantom of the Paradise?
Phantom of the Paradise. I don't know. I saw this movie once before. I think I saw it, at like a theater. They were showing it and whatever. You could go. Maybe it was even like a midnight thing or something. But
yeah, sure. As they like to do,
right? Very, very much, and sort of the way I was introduced to this, and I think my memory is correct, but this notion could be completely wrong. Was sort of like, because you know how Rocky Horror, I mean, they really do have the midnight screenings, and everybody dresses up, and they do the callbacks, and they do all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And I was sort of. I get the impression I had of this movie, or for some reason people gave me the impression of this movie. They're like, this is like the cooler version of Rocky Horror. They're like,
more serious version of that.
They're like, Rocky Horror is too mainstream. This is the cool one.
That's the argument I had for John earlier. That's exactly what the difference is.
Yeah, so I was kind of like,
more tied into reality.
Well, I was like, I just definitely want to check that out. If this is the more culty one or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you guys, I think probably remember that I don't really care for musicals just in general. They're just not my thing. I do a lot.
This is one of the few that I like.
Yeah, there are a handful that I really
but is it enjoy. A musical? Because do the characters? I mean, for me, the musical is the dialogue is singing is basically replacing the dialogue. Whereas in this, it's performances by bands.
But it's still a musical.
Nobody just breaks into song because of how they're feeling.
Hold on, this is what's called a backstage musical. All the musical numbers are actually justified in this thing.
Yeah.
It's one of the first backstage musicals. There's a lot of them now. Like the Elvis movie was a backstage musical. The people don't bust out in song usually. Yeah. And this is like one of the first ones that did that.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, because that's
I don't know if it matters.
It matters a little bit because it talks about your suspension of disbelief. Like Oklahoma is like people like there's a bright hole.
Rocky Horror Picture Show is a fucking musical with a capital M.
Yes. And this is a musical with a lowercase.
West Side Story in Oklahoma and the Music Man. Those are all musicals.
You're just overcome with emotion and you break into song and there's an orchestra somewhere.
That's exactly right.
Backing you up.
And either you buy it or you don't. And usually you don't.
There are some things to like about this movie. I don't totally hate it. It's just not my cup of tea, but every movie is good. And I do like his costume very much. I think it's creepy. I think it's fun. I love the teeth and the eyes.
It's ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
It's very cool. I wasn't a fan of the music personally, just like John. I just didn't really I didn't connect with it. I like the music more in Rocky Horror.
Yeah.
But to each their own. And for some reason, John, I don't really know Paul Williams that well, but he gives me the creeps too. There's something about him. There's something about his face.
Yeah.
He looks like an old man, little boy. I don't know how to
When he's
describe
in
it.
the
Like,
tub-
like
He's like 4 foot
tub,
8. Jesus
Dude,
Christ.
I'll say when he's in the fucking tub, that is fucking creepy.
it's
It is.
dude. He
with
looks
with
like
the wig on, saying
when he's in the
he's all
tub.
washed up,
Yeah, when
I
he's in the
know.
tub talking to the devil. That is
That is
like
creepy.
that's like what if the Brady Bunch was a nightmare R-rated
Uh-huh.
show or something? Like
Yeah.
it's so weird.
Also,
And
he's his best in this film when he's fucking with people, right? Like Winslow,
Yes.
read your contract. It's like
Yeah,
when he's
yeah.
when he's kind of like fucking people over, he's actually really good.
And the character of Winslow too, also for the same, I think that John was saying, the same sort of reasons. I was like, what? Why are we following this guy? And I don't know, but there's a lot.
I
of
couldn't. There was no character there for me to latch onto to follow through the movie. Yeah.
and
Although you got the characterization early, he's an artist. He's a tortured artist with a
Yeah,
bad
sure.
temper. I love that part where you're like, no, only those grease
Mhm.
balls touch my music. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you got a temper on you, guy.
Yeah, right. Committed to his
yeah,
art.
That sets up the rest of the film, basically.
there's fun stuff in here. It's just not my cup of tea, but
Yeah, I can do it.
I can see it. I can see why people love it.
Listen,
I mean, if you want to start,
Jared, just to say it out loud, you're not going to run into Palma at any film festival. So
No, I know that. I'm a big fan of Brian De Palma. Honestly, I'm a big fan of him, of his work.
and to start picking apart the story. I mean, the fact that basically everybody's corruptible in this thing. The singer, what's her name? Jessica. What's her name?
Phoenix.
Jessica Harper.
Phoenix is immediately like she's overjoyed that he's sexually interested in her, the Paul Williams character. Like instantly, it's like I'll sign the contract and then I'll do.
Give me your voice.
I'll do anything you want, and I'll do your cocaine, and let's go to bed.
Which is weird because it's like this has got a lot of this movie talks about sources. Part of it is like Faust, but that part's like Trilby. Have you ever read that book? Where a magician takes a woman's voice away, and like deal with her. It's
kind of like
a lot of stuff going on in there that's in the background, and it refers to classics.
That's kind of like the Little Mermaid too.
Also, the thing behind Chris, that patch bay there,
that's
that thing,
record plant.
Yeah, that's cool.
It really exists, and you can visit it in Canada.
Not for much longer. They are dismantling it.
Oh no!
Really?
Because I know a guy who's a photographer who's taking pictures, and I know another guy who they're selling off some of the shit out the rack for pennies on the dollar. If you
Oh man!
Wow. Well, all that stuff's antiquated at this point, right?
Well, yeah, it's all analog
studio in
shit.
Sausalito that they made rumors.
Oh,
no kidding.
I really do like this story a lot though, and I kept thinking, and I know this might be like blasphemy, but I kept kind of thinking like I wish someone would remake this movie with like a fucking really rad band, a really rad singer, like I don't know, like maybe not The Weeknd because he can't act, but I like his music. Like if someone. Yeah, if you were like, let's like you brought up Daft Punk, I'm like, put Daft Punk in a remake of this or something like
the Safdie brothers.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would work.
I would watch that.
Yes.
Like,
oh my God.
And I'm not to try to discredit this picture or De Palma's work, but how fun would that be if it was like, I don't know.
Oh, is that,
and took itself and if it took itself super seriously.
Right?
Selling your soul in the hip hop world makes more sense.
Yeah. You know, Sheila's watching that Vogue series on I think it's on Netflix right now, and it's all about right now. It's all about how Hilfiger hooked up with all the rappers in the '90s, and they started wearing his clothes. Snoop Dogg came out on stage on Saturday Night Live, and it was just like they started selling 1 million jackets and stuff.
Yep.
And I mean, it's like,
sick
fuck
shit,
yeah.
Man.
Yeah, you could like set it in the '90s and do like all these classic hip hop kind of stuff, and that would be good.
Just before the show, I think I was reading up on Diddy, and she's like getting madder and madder. It's like, guy. It's like,
well, I mean, if you took this story and grounded it, and maybe made the scary parts scarier, and the music campy, and the
nice digital effects in there,
like maybe sure.
Yeah, I mean, I even thought of someone like
the bit, and maybe someone more handsome to be the swan guy.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like a hot family opera,
This has got remakes formula all over it, man. Make it better. Take
Make
the
No?
thing
better.
and
Make
make
it
it
You're
better.
right. You're
Make it
not
less-
wrong.
A little
Yeah,
less
okay.
campy. But again, I mean, I have a pile of movies that I've been watching since I was 8 or 9 years old that I just cannot be objective about. Like I've
Yeah,
just
Right.
attached to
same
them,
here.
and I know
Yep.
they're fucked up, and I know they're dumb or cheesy or what, but
You love
Yeah.
them.
Me-
You
me-
love
me-
it.
We all have that, and no one should
Yeah,
ever
this
be
is me and
embarrassed about
Chris's
that.
block.
That's
it's
right.
Like we can't ever say anything
Yeah.
bad about this film ever. Sorry.
There are no guilty
But
pleasures.
I like what you
It's a-
guys, what you John and Jared brought to this, because there is perspective to this thing. There is, you know, and well done, man. Well done.
as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, I can see this movie's extremely polarizing.
Yes, exactly right. All right,
And
I think
I'm
we should.
feeling like an idiot, so
Right?
Okay, here we go.
I'm
Thumb it.
glad.
Thumb it.
I'm glad
I'm
you
gonna-
enjoyed it.
I'm gonna do a sideways.
Wow, we're all over the place on this one. I love it.
all right. All right,
Well
and my
done.
quarter's on the next one.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.